Okay, we're going to get started. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock on the dot. This is our June 4th regular scheduled Board of Education meeting, 7 p.m. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all for joining us tonight. Next item on the agenda is item B, order of business. I don't have any changes to the order of business. One reminder for tonight is Elizabeth, who takes our notes and our minutes, couldn't be here tonight. So again, when you do speak, please make sure you turn on your microphone so she can pull those minutes after our meeting takes place. Next item, communications to the Board of Education. I am not aware of anything. All right. In public comment, would anybody like to address the board? All right. Moving right on to superintendent's report. Jeff?
Thank you so much. All right. We have a lot to talk about, celebrate, and to take care of under superintendent's report, which I'm extremely proud of. I want to start first with presenting to both of our Board of Education student representatives a certificate of recognition, both to Brooke and to Lucas. I know Lucas could not be here today, but want to present to you a certificate of recognition for being the very first students that we have to be representatives on our Board of Education in New Hartford. It's a very special privilege and an honor to have you, and also to recognize the great work that both you and Lucas did all year long, informing us of all of the great happenings that take place here in New Hartford through all of our schools. So we're so indebted and grateful to you, Brooke, and to Lucas. Congratulations. She's ready to roll. I'll present that to you. And then Dr. Carroll. All right. So for our June meeting, we are so excited to have Brooke represent our students here in New Hartford and to share with us the great happenings that are taking place. Take it away, Brooke.
Throughout the year, I have reported on students at Anna Tolini, Bakerville, and New Hartford Elementary to showcase all the fun things that they have been learning about. Thank you for supporting all of our learning programs. The second graders from New Hartford Elementary and Bakerville will be coming to Anna Tolini for a transition visit on Wednesday. The epic adventure of Field Day is coming up for all three schools. Thank you to our community partners like South End Firehouse and Trooper Fig for helping us with Field Day. Also, thank you to Ms. Marciano and Ms. Marquis for organizing Field Day. We always have so much fun. The district-wide learning fair is Thursday, June 6th at Anna Tolini from 5 to 7. Students will be presenting independent projects and we will be able to get summer learning materials. There's also going to be an ice cream truck for any interested in getting a tasty treat. I'd like to take you back to the first day of kindergarten, the day I rode the school bus to school for the very first time, having these exciting but nervous butterflies in my stomach. When I got off the bus, the teachers and my new teacher, Miss Tancredi, welcomed me just like all of my teachers have done ever since. My journey throughout elementary school has been epic. I've learned new things and made new friends, and not only the academic lessons, I've learned so much more than that. Now, as I am approaching middle school with those same butterflies from kindergarten, I look at Dr. Carroll's door. I see butterflies, and I'm reminded that she, as well as all of my other teachers, have been there for my entire journey. I now take a breath, feeling confidence as I look to the new adventure, the one that I am now about to take, going to Region 7. Thank you to you, the Board of Ed members, Mr. Sousa, teachers and staff, and the students for helping make our school community so great.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brooke. That was very moving, very touching. Wow. Region 7 is absolutely going to be blessed having you and Lucas and all of our sixth graders. Thank you so much, Brooke, for all of your service to our Board of Education and to your hard work and perseverance all year long. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke.
Also under Superintendent's report, want to acknowledge one of our paraeducators, having served 19 years in New Hartford Public Schools. Kara Norman has announced her retirement. We want to honor her and celebrate her as well for her decision, but also for her service to our community and our schools. Thank you so much, Kara. Next up is a very special thank you. It is June 4th, and we have endeavored in a tremendous amount of work this year. Our students have put in diligent work, effort, perseverance throughout in the course of their learning endeavors this year. Our staff has been tremendous in all of the new learning that they've also engaged in, and our administrative staff for all the professional development opportunities and running our schools each and every day. We are grateful to every bus driver, cafeteria worker, everybody that is part of our school community. It was a success because of all of you. So congratulations to all of our school staff. Up next, we also have to acknowledge our data system specialist who has just recently retired. One of our functions as a Board of Education is to approve job descriptions. Linda Fitzgerald had served the district for a number of decades and had done a tremendous job. And over time, the position has changed and morphed into what you see before you in the board packets. So the purpose of this next piece on the agenda item is to have the job description formally adopted by the Board of Education, open to answer any questions. When I say it's morphed over time, it is not just a Power Schools, it's not a Power Schools management position. This position looks at, curating reports to the state of Connecticut that are due at certain points of the time regarding student attendance, regarding data for students' performance as well. And this position is extremely crucial to making sure that all those reports are created, uploaded, verified, and then certified at the state level. So this is the updated position or job description for this position before the board now. So I would need a motion to have this be adopted as the new job description.
So this was part of your packets that were sent to your homes or picked up. So does anybody have any questions regarding the job description? Tom?
Two questions. Is this a unionized position?
Currently, yes.
It is. And then what is the pay scale?
Yep.
What's the pay scale?
$28.83 an hour.
$28.83. So my question is this, because it's a morphed position, like you mentioned, is there a unmorphed position that would fulfill our needs, but at a less pay scale?
Great question. Unfortunately, no, because the demands of this position have increased such. This will be a challenge for us to certainly ascertain the right individual that can accomplish these tasks for the current negotiated contractual hourly salary. We will do our best. And if we do not find somebody, we have a backup plan, as we always do, to make sure that our reports are submitted in a timely and accurate fashion. But right now, this will be a challenge, this job to be posted and to locate someone with these types of credentials to make sure that they could do the job effectively for our school district. But we are up for the challenge. We'll post it and go from there. Yes, Kristen.
Is this a full-time position?
It is full-time, yes. Yep. 5 days a week, 8 to 4.
You mentioned this being currently, it's within the union. Are you planning on changing it?
That's the position was, it was questioned. No, the position is a unionized position.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it sits. That's where it is right now under the Paraeducators Union specifically, just for more clarity.
Okay.
Yes, Tom.
One more question. Is it based on 2,080 hours per year, or is it based on just the school year hours? School
year hours, 8 to 4. Yeah. There are a different number of days that they work in the Paraeducators Union. A high majority of them are during the school year. There may be some more additional days because this position has some preschool startup and post-school reporting features, such as rolling over all of the student enrollments and registrations and helping make sure everyone has correct teacher assigned and things of that nature. So there is some more that does occur over the summertime hours as well. So it's a little bit more than the school year.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Penny. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous.
Thank you, board. Up next, extremely proud to welcome up our leadership team to come on up and help to co-present the New Hartford Public Schools Leader and Educator Evaluation Plan. This was sent electronically to save trees and paper since they are such lengthy documents, 72 pages approximately. And in order to save trees, we've wanted to send it out electronically. This will absolutely be posted on our website, absolutely posted with our minutes as well, just for public knowledge and consumption. The Professional Development and Evaluation Committee, which I'll refer to as PDAC, has worked long, many months, and we are grateful for the flexibilities that the state of Connecticut has afforded for the evaluation plan to come forth. They have presented different models, and we've adapted their models to fit the needs of our educators and our leaders here in New Hartford Public Schools. I want to emphasize that. That is one of the most critical pieces. We were able to take a look at the model and make sure with the non-negotiables in piece, like rating scales cannot be incorporated any longer. That's being removed. But we wanted to make sure that everyone understood that we tailor-made this to our district. And we're extremely proud of the work that the teachers and even paras that were on the committee have done together in unison. And it is a byproduct of that. And it's also a collaborative effort of our unions, which is also key to make sure that everyone understands the intent of our development plan, our evaluation plan, and also that it will be reviewed on a yearly basis. And the flexibilities that the state has afforded us are tremendous. I shared months and months ago that I was happy that there was no forceful, you must take this plan, this is what it's going to be, and be reactionary and get this ball rolling, just this is it, this is what it is from the state. That's not what was done at all. So I'm very proud of the work that was done. I'm happy, I'm extremely grateful, and it is to help us grow, all of us, in the manner and the path in which we so choose with our evaluators. So with Kelly and with Amy as well. So this is going to help teachers across our spectrum of special education, all of our specials and regular education teachers to grow in areas that they choose. So obviously higher engagement and on their path to be successful. So I'm extremely proud of this plan. So some of the considerations just before you, stipulations. This is from a memo from the state of Connecticut, and we highlighted the second component because that is the path that we've taken. We're adapting the Connecticut Leader and Evaluation and Support models for 2024, and these are to be adopted by the boards of education and then submitted for an August 1st, 2025 deadline. So post today's meeting, we will absolutely submit this, and we will be, again, committed to reviewing this on a yearly basis to see where we could make continued improvements. But it has been a mutually agreed upon component insofar with all of our PDAC membership, which is what the intent of this was originally. All right, so I will pass it on to Amy next. All right, you have the mic?
I
Excellent.
do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just to echo what Superintendent Sousa was saying, our PDAC team that worked on this, it was a very welcomed project. As much as it was a lot of work to do, we were really looking forward to the opportunity of reimagining how educator evaluation has been done in the past. So it was a welcomed change. You know, in the past, it was always sort of a compliance exercise, right? We checked the box and it was very overcomplicated with lots of goal setting that had different calculations, and it was just a very overly complicated process. So part of the shifts that we see outlined in this plan is that streamlining, and it allows us to really focus on what matters, which is the focus on the educator growth and the professional learning. So when you're reading that plan, that is really what the focus is of this entire plan. So we see that come to life in this plan by the elimination of the overly complicated rating scale that we have seen before. So in the past, you might have heard that we would rate teachers with a exceeding, proficient, below, all connected to 4 different goals that all had different weights, and it could be very confusing. And so all of that has been streamlined in this process. So it's simplified where educators create that one goal that's tied to the most important and effective teaching practice. They work on that goal, they reflect upon that goal, and that is at the end of the evaluation process. It's, I met the goal, I didn't meet the goal. So it really does kind of relieve us of all of that burden that just got in the way of what the intention was of this process. Also, with this new model, there is opportunities for differentiation. So this was also very exciting for our teachers. So for example, depending on your level of certification or your numbers of teaching experience, the requirements might be a little bit different. There's opportunities for the teachers and the educators to work together on a collaborative goal, which is amazing to have grade level teams working together on something collaboratively, or even the option for educators to choose a 1-year, a 2-year, or a 3-year goal. Great differentiation opportunities. And then also it's kind of really one of the most exciting pieces of this is making sure we're focusing on multi-tiered supports for our teachers. Every teacher's different on their journey to success. So with this plan, there are opportunities to provide teachers with the level of support that they need to be successful for their students. And then one other thing to just highlight as we're talking about educator evaluation is that this evaluation plan is really about the assessment of performance related to teaching and learning. So it's really meant to be something that's improving that in a collaborative way. So evaluators and teachers are working together. And this sits outside of supervision, which is where on a day-to-day basis, our administrators, our principals, we're always working to help teachers and support teachers in their day-to-day work, in addition to what's included in this evaluation. So those are the big overarching ideas of the plan.
Okay, so this work, as Jeff and Amy mentioned, was, I'll just take this. This work was done in collaboration with our PDEC committee. And so all districts are required to hold and establish a PDEC committee, and their job is around creating, revising, and monitoring the evaluation of our educators. In addition, they have the responsibility of planning and overseeing the professional learning throughout the district. So you'll see on the right-hand side just our members, and so it was really important for us to make sure that we had cross-representation. So we have representation from grade levels K through 6. We have a special education staff member. We have a special areas staff member. New to the legislation was including a paraeducator in the committee. So Kelly Crevenzola has joined us this year. And then finally, Sarah Gadeke plays 2 roles in this committee, in that she's also one of our union tri-presidents. So it's a really, we have a variety of different stakeholders at the table each and every time that we are going through this decision-making process. And so Amy and I oversee it as a administrator and a non-administrator. And so we meet at least 2 to 3 times a year, always at the beginning and end of the year, middle of the year. This year we met more frequently as we were working to develop our new evaluation plan. So as we were tasked with these 2 charges, Amy oversaw the evaluation plan writing and I oversaw the professional learning side. And so our subcommittee looked to determine the ways that we could best support all of our educators in their professional learning moving forward. And so as this is the spirit of what teacher evaluation has coming forward, we wanted to ensure that we had the time, the resources to support our staff in this. And so we will utilize our professional development days throughout the school year to support teachers in their work. We will also be looking for creative ways to ensure that they are differentiating their own learning. So they might participate in something like a literature study. They might do some school visits. They might do some coaching. So we wanted to make sure that we have a variety of different ways that they can learn and grow. And again, establishing a calendar and a time frame to support that work as well. So we have developed that plan for next year, again, utilizing our full day professional development days. We have after school time that we utilize towards this as well. So it'll be something that we will continue as we move forward. All of the professional learning will be decided and determined with the teacher and administrator collaboratively during their goal setting conference. And so as the year goes on, if shifts need to be made, then during the mid-year conference, educators will be able to meet with their administrator to say, this has been going really well. I need to dig a little deeper here. And so they can really streamline their professional learning. So again, ensuring that we have the time and the resources to support that work will be really important moving forward.
Okay, so here is a graphic that includes all of the evaluation requirements. So this is our little cheat sheet that kind of has the whole plan wrapped up into one graphic. So in the center of this graphic, we see the purpose of the teacher evaluation, which is the educator and student learning growth and achievement. And this is done through that cyclical process that we'll go through in a minute. Additionally, there's sort of two pathways, and this depends on the teacher's experience. So beginning teachers might have some more observations and more opportunities for feedback with their evaluator, whereas more experienced teachers have a more differentiated pathway. So essentially at the beginning of the year, each teacher is either placed in cohort 1 or cohort 2, and then they experience this cycle along with their evaluator. So it starts with that goal setting process, as Heather was just explaining, that's really tied to their professional learning. So this is a really important part of the process where the evaluator and the teacher meet and agree mutually on what they're going to be working on that year. And then through this process, that includes the observations of in the classroom. It includes observations of teacher activities that might be non-classroom based, like a PPT, for example, or a parent meeting. And then this also includes lots of opportunities for the evaluator and the educator to be meeting, whether that's through that mid-year check. And that would be an opportunity where any adjustments that need to be made are made. And sort of back to that first slide where I talked about those multi-tiered systems, this would be an opportunity where the educator or the evaluator might say, hey, I need a little bit more support here, or I'd like to do this conference. That's really going to help me get to my end goal. So a lot of those conversations happen at that time to provide any additional supports that may be needed. And then, of course, at the end of the year, there is that meeting, and all of our feedback with our teachers is both in writing and verbally. And so the last thing, just to dive into a little bit deeper, I've already touched upon it. This is pulled right from the document, but really just highlighting those tiered systems of support. And in some cases, some teachers may require more support along the way. And so we might increase that level of support. And in some cases, that might lead to what we call a corrective support plan, which is something a little bit more intensive and targeted and within a time frame. And this is to help support our teachers who might need that level of intervention to accomplish their goals. And with that, there's always an avenue and opportunities for the evaluator and for the teachers to, when they're meeting, to if there is a dispute in the feedback or the rating, there's always a way and an avenue for those conversations to happen that's equitable and fair for the educator as well. So that's all part of and included in and outlined in the plan. So with that, again, I just want to say it was really exciting to work on this with the team, and the teachers, and the feedback we got from the team was amazing. And we're really excited to get this up and running into place, because we do feel like this shift, focusing on the professional development and the teacher learning, is where it's at for our students in the long run.
Thank you, team. So just to bring us up to our next points, just some quick bullet points. We're going to be submitting this plan after adoption here by the Board of Education. If revisions are necessary, as I mentioned, we're in that process. If we need any specific revisions more immediately, they will come back to us by September the 16th as listed here. If afterward, if there's a approved revised plan to submit before October 1st, and then the last piece there is once it is confirmed that it has been approved, then I will then bring that information back here to the Board of Education. So our plan is to submit this prior to August 1st. If we need revisions, we've got the October 16th deadline. If it requires that, we've got to submit it again before October 1st. And once it's been approved completely, just to reiterate, then I will come back to the Board of Education and share that news with the Board of Ed. So again, this was a model taken from the state of Connecticut. We had also worked with Ed Advance. We had worked with partnering districts as well to take a look at this. We felt that this plan was the absolute best model that we wanted to incorporate and adapt to fit the needs of New Hartford Public Schools. And we're super proud of the plan. And we wanted to present just a quick snapshot in addition to all of the material that all of the Board of Education members have received via email as well. And again, that will be posted for consumption. Any questions or considerations?
Do we do something similar now?
No. So
what do we do now?
We did, and I'll tell you what we do now because we've given greater flexibilities. Prior to COVID, we had a 4-point rating scale where people were evaluated on the specific domains across instruction, classroom management, assessment, but it was also infused with culture surveys from our climate surveys that we attended. And then all of those pieces were very complicatedly weighed. So student assessment was worth 40 points and a survey might have been worth 20 points. And yet to weigh that all out, we had a huge framework and an Excel spreadsheet. Any educators are nodding their heads because they know. So very large, cumbersome spreadsheet that then spit out a number, then gave you a rating. And it was virtually impossible to earn a 4 because you had to exceed what the expectation was. And there was no really good avenue for course correction like this model does here. COVID came, evaluation took a huge, hard pause. The state of Connecticut said, nope, stop evaluation. You can't truly evaluate. Virtual learning, not fair to educators, not fair to anybody. So we were given intense flexibilities. Evaluate as you see fit to help your educators grow. So it was then started to get a little bit too loosey-goosey. This is bringing it back tight again. And I have enough gray hairs to tell you that I've seen multiple teacher evaluation models. This is the best because it strikes the perfect balance to supporting educators along their path to growth that other plans did not. And the others seem more punitive in nature. This is more collaborative. This is more directive, and it allows this long-term effect. I remember when I was teaching science, having to, tell my evaluator, so I achieved the goal and it was December. Now what? Well, sorry, you're kind of stuck because that's the goal you established. And I said, but I want to do more. Well, you're kind of stuck. That doesn't exist here. You could have a goal over the long term to continue to increase your capacity to be an excellent educator. We know that beginning year teachers need a lot of focus on and help with classroom management. So that could be a goal over a course of time. But then as you become more adept to your skill set and you want to start looking at maybe assessment and doing a better job of looking at assessment to help meet the needs of each individual child, then that could be a different goal that you could set and establish. So this plan offers so much more that meets the needs of our staff and our students ultimately. Yes, Tim.
First, I would like to just say that this seems pretty good because it takes away rater, bias or error, which seems pretty good. But what would the appeal process be for the worker if they had an issue with it?
Yep. So currently now it would be to sit together with a member from the PDAC committee, a neutral party, if you will, that would sit and hear and then provide an actionable, reasonable resolution to whatever the case may be. We haven't gone through it yet. I know we may or may not have examples that we'll hear either statewide or from our own in district, but that is the current process now where that evidence would be brought before both. I don't anticipate that. We have tremendous educators in New Hartford, but that is the resolution process where you'd sit before the neutral party to discuss and share your points or your evidence to support the fact that you attained your goal or you did not. and the other party would also be able to give that information, and then there would have to be a resolution that's amicable before them both. And there's a consensus protocol that we would also utilize to help us achieve that goal at the end of the day. Sure.
I have a question about how you guys help educators kind of like identify or like shift goals. You know, from my personal experience, that a lot of times you have someone you're managing and they're like, I don't know what my goal should be. Like, what should my goal be? So can you talk a little bit about that process and how that helps? What's changed, I guess, here?
Sure. I could let you answer.
We talked a lot about that in our sessions. And so as we're living out this new model, we talked a lot about that idea of collaborative goal setting. So, and making sure that the goals related to things that are happening relevant to them. Like we think about like the implementation of curriculum and things like that. So getting teachers started with some really good ideas about what would make sense for them in terms of what's happening in the district. And when it comes to, as Jeff was talking about with newer teachers who might need more kind of foundational work, that's the conversation between the evaluator and that teacher, and talking about what would be a good start for them depending on where they are in their career and the previous year as well. So what I really like about this plan is next year, after that first year, you use that end of year evaluation to really start thinking about what you're going to be working on the following year, whether or not you want to continue down that road or you're ready for the next step. So that all happens through those like collaborative conversations between the educator and the evaluator. Any other thoughts to that, Heather, that you...
No, that's exactly.
Does that answer? Okay. We do want to come up with some sample goals too. That was a big, a big one. Yeah.
Is this something that all school districts are doing, or is it just us?
All must by August 1st have to submit their plans in the state of Connecticut.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask you a few questions? How far reaching is this model going? Right? We talk about the educators, but is this also reaching out to our administrators and our support staff?
Yes, it is all encompassing for leaders. So for me, evaluating the leadership team across the district with site visits and then those conversations, then those documentations. So it overreaches both educators and the educational leaders in our district.
So administrators, do they fall within this model, or are we using a different structure?
They do fall within this model, very parallel. Yep.
Can you go back to the slide that had the cohorts on it and how they were? So cohort one, as I understand, these are, let's say, new teachers, right? As I look at that, does that mean that they move out of cohort one as soon as they get to their second year?
So this is very bulleted, simplified. In the plan, it outlines that a little bit more. So an initial educator certificate is 3 years. So this would be a minimum of 3 years in cohort one. Then assuming on that third year they're successful, then they would move into cohort two.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Makes it. And then the structure of evaluator, evaluatee relationships. How many, I mean, how does that structure work? Just in general, is it, I can't imagine you have every staff member within that school system.
She does.
So
She does, and so does she. They both do. It's a very,
So department heads don't,
we don't have,
we don't really have them, no?
no, sir. Can't.
Mike does.
But not us.
Yep.
Mike too. Mike has all of his special education staff, not just special education teachers, speech language pathologists, social workers, school psychologists. The list goes on and on. Para-educators, all of the para-educators. So there's a lot of evaluations taking place, but no, we don't have departmental support.
Seem to be a heavy lift. Good luck.
It is.
All right. Any additional questions?
Am I correct in assuming that the majority of teachers will remain on tier 1 as opposed to tier 2 or tier 3?
Having not done it yet, we're not quite sure, but I would assume that, yes.
Okay.
And
You.
yeah.
So are they all starting out as cohort 1?
So any teacher that currently carries their provisional or professional certificate will automatically start in cohort 2, also pending that they were successful in their last year's evaluation so that they met those goals. And that's how you're placed into cohort 2. The majority of our teachers, we have a very veteran staff. So really we do, of the 2 cohorts, cohort 2 is a much larger cohort. And we have a few staff who are still initial educators.
Great presentation.
Okay, if there are no more questions, we do need a motion to adopt the educator evaluation plan.
I'll make the
Anybody
motion.
like- Motion by Tim,
I'll second that.
second by Frank. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Are you good, Jeff?
I'm good. Can I grab it?
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, up next, I want to invite Becky Terrell. Becky Terrell comes to us from EdAdvance, our nutrition sponsor, and from all of the great commentary. If you haven't heard from students or your own children at home, the
I'm sorry.
sorry.
You've got that under new business. We're gonna.
Oh, I skipped over a whole section.
Yeah.
Becky, I'll give you another introduction in just a few moments. My apologies.
So what happened to the social?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So
We
happy
skipped
to
right
bring you
past
up.
it, so we're gonna go back to that.
That in the minutes.
Carry on.
All right, we're going to get back to that under new business. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the Board of Education Chair's Report. The item listed under here is the social media policy etiquette. I'd like to table that for today. I'd like that to be a full board discussion. We are only missing one board member. We do have a full agenda today. I don't think there's a major priority on this, so if everybody's okay with it, we'll table it and bring it to our next meeting. Okay, thank you. The only other thing I have under the Board of Education Chair's Report, I did meet with Jeff earlier this week, last week. We met last week. We did go over his evaluation, the compiled evaluation I put together with everybody's comments. That is signed and filed in the record, and we will take up under executive session the superintendent's contract and the extension of his contract. So we'll take that up then. Routine business, we have 2 items, approval of the minutes for May 14th in the expenditure report. Does anybody have any reason to pull anything from the routine business, or do you want to take these both together?
The minutes in the expense report as presented.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? No discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Okay, so we've got, what do we want? 7-0-1. Motion passes. Okay, now on to new business. Item number 1.
Take 2. All right, I'd like to welcome up once again, but for real this time, Becky Terrell, who works for EdAdvance as Director of Nutrition Food Services there. And she is here before us today to discuss meal prices for the 24-25 school year. She brought along with her information that she asked me to share. We will make absolutely this public as well, because it's part of our agenda or our minutes in our meeting now. Please pass that on to one for each person.
All right. Can you hear me? Or is this is basically working for your.
Paul will tell us. Are we on? Are we live?
We
All
need
right.
2 more.
And one other really important highlight, extremely important highlight
Eric,
for
we
Becky.
need to have those people over there.
I'll pass them over if they need them. Does everyone have one? Oh, okay. Can I just collect a few more? Sorry. Thank you for passing those down. I appreciate it. One other really important highlight. Becky Terrell's staff at Advance does a tremendous job preparing everything for us all of the time and contracting. And at our Board of Education retreat that we had for new members of the board back in, my goodness, October, November, it was a while ago. There were these incredible cookies that were somehow concocted. Well, Becky has tracked down, found out where they came from. I may or may not have pestered her. And so she has made sure that they're baked and ready to go. So there's a tray of those ridiculously awesome cookies. And if you didn't get one last time, you got to make sure you take one today. They're phenomenal. So thank you, Becky, for also bringing those to sweeten the deal, if you will.
Yes.
So please go ahead.
Well, you know, anytime I show up without food, I'm like, this is not smart.
Yeah.
So, I just have to, every time I speak at a Board of Education meeting, I always have to tell folks that I'm a 23-year-old, listen to me, a 23-year veteran of the Plainville Board of Education. I'm currently the chair still, and so there's just, absolutely something wrong with me that I sat here and enjoyed that presentation, because on Monday night, our board is going to give us the same, presentation, our administration will. So I'm going, you guys asked really good questions. And I'm thinking, that's good. That's interesting. So I'll have something to compare it to now. So I appreciate that. But I'm that nerdy that I like going to board meetings and listening. So, but the one thing I looked at was when we were assessing everyone's meal prices is, as you know, there hasn't been meal price increases for several years because of COVID. And so normally we kind of look at it every year, but the state gave us a dispensation and said, during COVID, no one's getting charged. Don't worry about it. Don't look at it. And last year when I knew people were going to start to pay, I didn't want to increase anybody because I thought it was already a shock that people were going to have to start paying for their meals again. And so this year we're really at the point where we need to make an increase. So one of the things I was able to do was to look back at some of the documents, because apparently, there's been a long-standing relationship between Ed Advanced Food Service and New Hartford Public Schools that precedes me. And I could see that in 2013, 14, so we're talking 10 years ago, the price was the same as it is today for both lunch and breakfast. So, that was something that I thought, well, then I think it's probably time for an increase. So just so you're aware of that. So at this point, I would say that I'm suggesting an increase, and if you look at the first document, these are the districts and the schools that we work with. So I'm showing you here what the current price is. The first list says breakfast price. So you are $1.75 for breakfast right now, and I'm suggesting $2.25, which I know is a big increase. And I am doing that with all the feeder schools to Region 7, so that everybody's kind of in the same place. And then for lunch, you're currently at $3, and I'm recommending $3.50. There is some method to this. The state will want us to eventually look at the reimbursement rate that we get for a free meal and look at how much we're charging families. And when we add our subsidy for those paid meals, it should come up to about what they pay for a free meal. And that's what I'm looking at. So it makes sense. The nice thing about a big increase is hopefully it'll be another maybe 5 years before you have to do that again. There are some districts who like to do 10 cents a year. I'm not a big fan of that, because that means every year you're having to increase, and it becomes, it's just harder for families to track. And so that's the recommendation. On the second page of this document, SNACT, which is the School Nutrition Association of Connecticut, did a survey. They asked food service directors around the state to tell them what their current charges, what their current fees were, and what they were planning on doing next year, and what they were going to charge. So you can kind of see the first category is just what people were planning to charge for breakfast. It's like they didn't ask that first question about breakfast. They just were asking people, what are you going to charge for breakfast next year? Then they asked, do you plan to increase lunch prices? and then what are you going to charge for lunch? And so you can kind of see that 350 pop up there quite often. And it's kind of a nice middle of the road number. A lot of districts did increase their prices last year. I know a few of the districts we work with did. And, as I mentioned, we didn't do that last year. And so that's where we're at. Any questions about this or?
What is the DRG on the second page?
You know what? It's the demographic reference group. Is that what it stands for now?
Correct.
So
yeah.
what are the letters? What do the letters underneath correspond to?
So an A would be probably a district like Avon, and a G would probably be a district like, I don't know, what is Hartford? Maybe an E. Does anybody else know?
Yeah.
So it's socioeconomics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So it's like that A. When you look at Winchester in here, which is a district that we work with, they're a CEP district. So they, because of how many children qualify for free meals, get all free meals for the whole district. So with them, I asked them to increase their meal prices, even though that only counts if a child buys a second meal. And I said, we still should be doing that, even though they sell like, I don't know, maybe 100 a year or something, not very many. But just to keep us, where we should be. So, yep, that's what the DRG is. Questions? All right. Any other questions about food service while I'm here anyway? All right. Thank you for having me and letting me come here and listen to your presentations. And, and please make sure you take a cookie home, because he has been really kind of, where are those cookies kind of thing. So I was glad to be able to bring them. But thank you.
Thank you, Becky. So it's before the board to determine next step in terms of motioning to increase meal prices. Becky will then take care and work with our school staff in terms of communicating this out to our families in an advanced manner so that they know well in advance.
I make a motion that we accept the Ed Advanced school meal prices for the coming school year. It would be 24-25, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So we have a motion by Penny to accept the recommendation by Ed Advance to increase breakfast from $175 to $225 and lunch from $3 to $3.50 for the 24-25 school year. We have a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we have a second by Tom for discussion. Floor is open.
I have a quick question. This past year, breakfast was, I guess if you want to say free, we'll use the word free for students if they wanted it. Is that something that's continuing for all students, or is that just going to be for low income?
Sure. So I'll call Becky back up if she'd like to answer the question relative to nutrition services, since she's our sponsor. So the question was, are the breakfasts going to continue to be free for our students?
Unfortunately not.
Right.
The state did not find that funding. We lobbied for it, but it did not happen that way.
Thank you.
Do we know how many students in our district get free lunch?
Because that number is
Percentage
wise.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't know it off the top of my head. I don't process the paperwork, nor do I receive that information back. I would suggest that it might be between 15% and maybe 18% if I had to take a guess. Becky, do you know information up?
That's probably, I think you're under.
Yeah, we're right at the the last time I checked that's where it was, but I'm not privy to that information because of the way that it's, folks apply for it and it's maintained safely and confidentially because of families' income status.
So that's, again, under 20% of the
ballpark.
total,
Yeah.
of the total student population.
Yep.
And do we know how many take advantage of breakfast or lunch?
So that's been extremely popular, both at New Hartford and at Bakerville.
Well,
I would say on average, and Amy can correct me if I'm wrong, probably about 40 to 50 at Bakerville and higher at New Hartford. Yeah, seems like when I'm there, there's 30 kids coming through and grabbing the free breakfast. So about 30% because it's about 100 kids there. Much higher. Yeah. 60s or 70%. Yeah.
So
Really
we're
taking
saying
advantage of
30
it.
to 50% at Bakerville and 70% at New Hartford?
30% at Bakerville.
30%.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's 30. Yeah. Yep. In New Hartford, 70%, about 70 students.
Question. Would the increase create a little more, is it just to maintain the quality of the lunch as it exists now, or would it create a little bit, better quality because there's a little more money?
Basically, first of all, just to maintain what we do. We always talk about this program runs and literally, and you all know, when you go to the grocery store, it costs food. And we've been trying really, really hard to increase the pay for our staff because they work their butts off. Sorry. They work really hard. They're very dedicated. When one of them isn't in a building, it's just like a teacher because there's nobody here. We do not want our administrative staff having to come into the kitchen. So, we really are trying to do those two things. And once we get to that point, then anytime we can, we're always trying to improve the quality of what we're doing. We're trying to weigh, what we can afford and what we can't. At Advance, we're a nonprofit agency. In general, my department loses money because it is just really difficult to administer food service programs, especially in small schools. Usually if you have a high school, the high school will sell a la carte and you'll have a lot of kids purchasing. And that sort of covers the cost of other things. But the one thing that does actually happen is these New Hartford, actually all three of them, but New Hartford and Bakerville actually do sell quite a little bit of a la carte. And it's a nice little boost to the profit line. But it's just really hard to maintain these programs. There's a lot of requirements. We're doing fresh fruits and vegetables all the time. We just have to get certain things that have to be a certain quality. It's not something that you can just find the kind of, we get Tyson chicken patties. The kind of Tyson chicken patties we get, you can't get at the grocery store. They don't sell them there because ours are lower in sodium and they're whole grain. And that's true of almost every single product we sell. They make special Pop-Tarts so that we can sell Pop-Tarts. And it's all done by manufacturers to make them compliant for the schools. It's a crazy complicated program that is very difficult to administer by people who don't do it every day. And so, it's just a really heavy regulation. We work really closely with Linda Fitzgerald. I know Joanne in my office is like, Linda's retiring. What are we going to do? Because, we've known Linda for years and work a lot with her from the perspective of information back and forth. But as far as what we're going to do with the additional funding, we're really going to try and cover our costs. And that is always a challenge. Every single thing we use, I show them this is what a glove costs. So let's look at what is it, what can we do to try and make sure that we're saving pennies here and there, because that's how that program runs. As you can imagine, $3.50 for a lunch, you can't go anywhere and even come close to that anymore, right? And that we're providing protein, grains, fruits, vegetables, milk. We let kids take as many fruits and vegetables as they want. That's part of our program. And so it's hard to make the ends meet. So.
And I'm sorry, Becky, just to remind me, you said these rates that are in place now, the 175 and 3 have been that way when you look back 2014? 2013,
14. It may go back further, but I couldn't find, at that point in time, the paperwork that I had kind of was not available in the computer. I was looking back as far as I could, but I know that in 2013, 14, the meal prices are the same as they are today.
Does that also mean that you'll increase the prices that go to the teachers that eat here at school?
I think we did that last year. I want to say, is it 525? Yeah. Yep. We increased to all of our districts. We increased our adult meal prices to $5.25. And that is something that the state also requires and the federal government requires that we figure out how much we should be charging. Because every time, as I mentioned, every time we sell a child a meal, we get a subsidy, 2 different kinds of subsidies. One's a commodity subsidy and one's an actual physical funding subsidy. So we get like 10 cents or 15 cents or something like that. So we have to make sure that we're covering that cost when we sell a meal to an adult. So they pay $5.25.
Would you also consider increasing the teachers' prices this year?
I wouldn't increase them again. Year? Yeah, that's why we did it last year. So, I knew we were very low. Everybody was, and for teachers' prices, and we had to get those up. So
would it help if Antolini School was also a la carte?
Antolini, I think, sells some a la carte too.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, they do.
You
all
just
3 of them.
mentioned the other 2 schools. That's why I was confused.
All 3 of them do, but for some reason, I don't know. I'm always surprised at New Hartford and Bakerville because they're little tiny schools, and they tend to, the kids really. I've seen it. Like they all line up and they like their snacks. So.
And what would happen if we didn't approve this increase in pricing?
I mean, it would be much more difficult for us to make the ends meet. And, I'm hoping that all the districts that are the feeders into Region 7 too see that it's a good thing for everybody to kind of go in the same direction. And as you could see, Region 7's prices are really low too. And they're going to be increasing theirs by 75 cents, I think it is.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm going to run away now.
Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion by Penny, and I won't reread it, but to accept the recommendation to increase breakfast and lunch to the suggested rates that are here in front of you. Second by Tom for discussion. Seeing no additional discussion, we'll call it to a vote. So all those in favor of approving the increases, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Becky, thank you. And thank you for the cookies.
Yeah, I was going to say, and thank you for the cookies.
If they're left there, my children will love them. All right, second item under new business is the asbestos abatement design plans.
Excellent. So within your board packets, there were the design plans. Last year, the Board of Education has charged me to take a look and find out what materials were hot and what materials were not in our 3 schools. So those reports have been completed and submitted. We now have the next step, which is to consider the remediation removal of the asbestos abatement. Of the asbestos from our buildings. They're located there for public consumption, also for the board members. We have to determine, we met as a subcommittee, so subcommittee members feel free to chime in or share any other additional insights. But basically, we want to bring it before the board to determine if we are to move forward with the next phase, which is for Enviromed to design the service plans to have those remove all those asbestos materials to be removed from our schools. That will then give us the right or the ability to go out and request proposals from different contractors to have the asbestos removed or ameliorated. The original goal last year's board was, hey, we pay this fee every single year anyway. Is there a way that we can go ahead and remove asbestos every year so we don't have to continue to pay for this monitoring of approximately $3,000 every 6 months? It was one of our purchase services. That's where it had its genesis, brings us to where we are today, to put before the board the decision or the determination to go ahead and procure these services from Enviromed, which then gives us the next piece of information, which would be to have every school go out to bid, what the cost would be to then place into our budgeting under capital for a subsequent year, obviously subject to approval. So that's where we are, unless any other members want to share anything else.
Yeah, can you just explain how the cost of someone to come out each year? I know you kind of mentioned how much that was a little bit, but how over a certain amount of years we would reimburse ourselves for the cost of this service?
For this component so far, it would take us, approximately 2 or 3 years to, recoup these costs. Now, what comes of the actual removal, I don't know those costs. I can't even pretend to have any clue of what that would look like, because every scope of work is different for every one of our schools in terms of where the asbestos is located. Obviously, this would be a summertime job. We're not doing this when children are here. You can't. We have to take particulate testing of the air constantly. It's got to be sealed off, and then it's got to be disposed of properly. So this would just only be the design work that would need to be created so that it can go out to bid, so we would know and can collect those proposals to have the asbestos removed. So that is probably longer range. After attaining that information, I could better answer that question. For now, because we went through the process of finding out which materials are specifically hot and which ones are not, now it's time to determine, are we going to move forward with the next step and then have that go out to bid so that we can get the next cost component. Then you could look at that over time, because if every 6 months we're paying $3,000 for them to come and monitor these substances or these materials in our buildings, then we'll have a better trajectory of, okay, $6,000 a year, how many years is that going to take to recoup the monies that it would cost to the design component, the testing component, and then the actual removal component. So for the board's consideration.
As I look at this, right, you've said it a couple times, you're looking at, this is the cost to design the asbestos material removal.
Correct.
In accordance with Department of Health regulations.
Everything. Yep.
I see that this stops at the pre-bid walkthrough. So subsequent to this is monitoring of the removal, because you need a licensed hygienist to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece is replacement. If we remove a floor, we have to put a floor back down. So we need design services from an architect. Do we have those values to understand the complete picture?
No, I don't, because this would hopefully bring those proposals forward, but we don't have that as part of this. Again, because all of them are different areas, right? So,
all right. It would seem that, there might, again, this is my opinion, but my opinion would be there needs to be a plan of attack by building. Right, and that plan of attack needs to include, like I said, not only, this is the removal that stops at the pre-bid walkthrough. So once the bidding is done, now we understand the number to remove the asbestos. From there, there's the next phase of work is to actually remove it over a summer, as you said. That will also include monitoring services from a company like Enviromed, but also, again, putting the product back. So whatever we remove, we need to put something back. So I think we need to understand that as well. That's my opinion. Does anybody else have any comments?
I added up the 3 costs. I mean, just what you're proposing here is $12,485. But like Tim is saying, if you pick up the floor and you have to put something else down, I mean, and on Ann Antolini, it says the main hall corridors in the original building. How long is that? Is that from the gymnasium door to the T? Or from the office up to where you go either right or left to the gymnasium or up to the T?
It's a great question. I'd have to look back at the actual report itself because they were looking at that material of suspect tile, and wherever that type of tile is located in the building, it would be all of that. But I'd have to look back specifically at the reports provided by Environment to determine that.
And when they're talking about the bathrooms at Antolini, I mean, ripping up all the tile that's on the floor?
That I don't believe was the tile. I believe that was caulk, but I'd have to go back and look exactly at the.
Is caulk?
Oh yeah, it has asbestos. Yeah,
Oh.
some does, not all. Others have PFAS, which we've discussed. That could also
And
be in our
where is
waters.
the caulk?
In the bathroom,
Yeah.
it could be along the top of the tiling. It could be around.
Oh, okay.
It could be in various locations where a stall door or stall lines up with the back wall. There could be caulking back
Okay.
there as well. It could be on the threshold, on the flooring.
And why do we care about the attic stairwell?
Not that students are there, but go ahead, Megan.
Huh? Okay.
Exactly. Right.
Thanks.
Yep.
And to Tim's point, can this be done one school at a time? Can it be done one school 1 year, another school second year?
Probably more reasonable
split up.
approach to it versus doing all three at one time.
Okay.
Kind of on the direction of the board.
So what, then we would have to decide which is the worst school and work it that way?
I don't necessarily say worst, but maybe one that could be remediated and then approved, via our capital budget more quickly, but it would allow also more focus to go in, as Tim was saying, to then procure additional costs for the replacement of floors and corridor tiles that need to be taken up. We could certainly do it in a phase-by-phase manner. That makes sense to me completely.
When you say face to face, do you mean doing all the floors in the three schools? Or?
No, phase one, meaning school one, school two, school three. One phase
But
at
you
a
didn't
time.
say, you didn't answer whether it would start with the one that's the worst or the easiest.
It's really the will of the board and what we have approved via the capital. All three schools have levels of asbestos.
Right.
So I don't want to say one is worse than the other because I don't think that would be an appropriate statement to make publicly that one is worse or better off in any condition.
Okay.
They all have asbestos.
I understand.
Many buildings do. And I don't want to put out a scare
Yeah.
tactic. That's not my intention. My
Okay.
intention is to say, there's an issue. How would we like to approach it? We could do this in a phased manner and then communicate that out to our public.
Understand.
The only issue we have currently is that we were trying to save the recurring inspection costs. Right, we're not obligated to move forward with any remediation. This is more of let's try to save some money. And
Yeah.
but
That was the
when
genesis.
you start, peeling the layers back, you realize that in order to start saving money, you need to spend.
Mhm.
This is going to be upwards of, in my opinion, we're looking at $300,000 or $400,000 worth of work to get all these schools done. That's probably on the low end.
And just again, to make it a point very clear to all that are listening and for minutes, there's no unsafe conditions of our schools right now. This is just, we've identified potential areas that we could remove asbestos. Right now, they're either encapsulated or deemed safe because we still have the monitoring system in place through AHIRA, and the company that does this for us is Environment. They report this to the state all the time. So there's nothing that is a right now critical danger that needs to be removed. That is not what we're saying. We're saying there's asbestos just as there is in a multitude of homes and buildings and schools throughout the state of Connecticut. We wanted to take the course of action to see if we could save some money. And if we would like to continue that down that path, we can. If we don't want to, that's the prerogative of the Board of Education.
Is the cost of monitoring the same in each building?
It's approximately $6,000 a year that they come in, and that's for all 3 buildings, I believe.
Is it 2,000 per building?
Approximately.
So if you are trying to stop having to pay that and you only had to have 2 buildings, is that what you're saying? You could have only 2 buildings.
The thought
monitored?
originally was when we were looking at budget, any possible way of saving anything, we looked at every single line, like we did this year as we went through the budget. And one of the suggestions was to say, hey, look at some of our purchase services. How much asbestos is really in our buildings? Well, I didn't know that answer without contracting, getting that information first. So now we're at the point of we spent $15,000 just to determine all the material, right? Costs, the material consistency of whether it has asbestos or not. And now we're at the next point of saying, do we want to go forward and get the design plans to have this stuff removed, knowing that it could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars when we originally wanted to just save the $6,000 approximately a year. So we're in that quandary. That's where we are right now.
Is there any savings there?
For immediate, no, but overall, very long time, perhaps.
I think between some people on this board who do this kind of stuff for a living, you maybe take this report here and put it in front of a contractor who does this stuff for a living, just to get round number ROM numbers. And right now we're throwing out these 6-figure numbers that, I'm just thinking based on some of the work that I've done and the demo that I do, and Tim does a lot more than I do, and so just based on our general knowledge of the industry, this is a large bill. So maybe, with the permission, if we could share this report outside this room with a contractor, a demo contractor perhaps, who does this for a living, get some sort of ROM on these areas, if that's a possibility, if that's a suggestion anyway.
Okay.
But again, it's up to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to think that at this point now, I don't know if the board, at least in my mind, is prepared to move on this particular proposal. But again, I'm only one of 8 of us here. I think we need to understand more, right? Because again, this isn't the only cost. So to spend this money to get a plan to remove this and not understand what it's going to cost us to replace it, in my opinion, is not a good spend.
Incomplete.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a good spend.
Yep.
And the other thing that I would look at is, again, have we done any research into any potential grants that are out there for removal of hazardous materials?
No.
Or could we?
No, I have not, but certainly would love to do that if that exists.
If we could take a look into that, because again, the state is starting to clamp down, but there may be grants still available for removal of hazardous materials in schools. Anybody else have any thoughts? Are we all okay not moving on this today, tabling it for additional information? Okay. Seeing no objections, we'll table this for today. For additional information.
Are we letting Tom see if he can get some pricing? Or you?
It's up to the board. If you guys are okay with it, yeah, we can, if we can get copies of the reports.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we get copies of the reports, yeah, well, I can have someone take a look at it and see if we can get some,
That would be great.
some, as Tom said, rough order of magnitude on that. All right. Okay, we're good under new business. Moving on to item H, old business. We have some second reads of some policies, actually 4 of them for today. Penny, are you going to walk us through these?
Sure, if you want.
Please.
All right. I'm sorry. The first policy is 4111.3, personnel, increasing educator diversity. So I believe you read these all at the last meeting. Was there any other corrections or additions, deletions that you'd like to make?
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve policy 4111.3 personnel.
I make a motion to approve 4113.
Motion by Frank. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Penny. Any discussion?
I just want to state for the record, I think this policy has no place in any district, never mind ours, based on race. Should not be involved with a decision to hire an educator or anyone else in the school. It should be quality and performance. And I don't like it, and I'm not voting for it. Because some of the stuff that comes out of Hartford, you can see the intent, right? It's to keep kids safe or to increase productivity or building maintenance or whatever. This one is strictly based on race or orientation or whatever the diversity moniker you want to stick to it. And it's wrong, and I'm not voting for it.
Yes, that has, and that plan's already been submitted, and it has been added, both. And we await feedback from the state. This is the policy that states that you must submit a plan in place to increase your workforce. You're casting a broader net, and then we have our process of interviewing candidates to make sure that they are the best candidates that we could possibly hire for the position. We're still going to maintain that. They go through a rigorous interview process, performance task, and then they go through our evaluation process as well to make sure that they're the best possible candidate for the position. You can reject it. You still have to have it. Correct. Yeah, because this has to be part. We still have to submit the plan, so you could reject it. But again, the plan still has to be submitted, which it already has been submitted. This codifies the work that we've stated that the state of Connecticut says we must do. We did it. We did it with Ed Advance and other surrounding school districts. Every school district must submit a plan. We've already submitted ours in a timely manner. We're awaiting their feedback, but ours was before the board. And also we discussed merit at that time, knowing that we have to hire the best candidate outside of any other guise of just diversity and equity components. We're looking for the best candidate, period, end of the story. And they have to be able to have the right qualifications, the right certification to be before our students. And that's what we're going to continue to do. This, I think more of this, and that's why I was trying to guide the board last time, is, hey, we're not going to just limit ourselves to posting online. We're going to go to career fairs. We're going to look for candidates across the spectrum of our state of Connecticut and not just limit us to that. That was more of the spirit and intent. But now you're before us and you're interviewing with us, with Kelly, with Amy, with our team. You have to have the right qualifications. You have to know what great educators are willing to do. You have to know the unconditional love that you have to have for our students. And it's got to come across very clearly. And you have to be able to perform that way as well when it's on a day-to-day basis. If not, there's systems in place to, on a probationary period, you're eliminated or you're not renewed as an educator in our district and in the state of Connecticut as well.
I'm going to go on record in saying that I don't think, increasing educator diversity is such a scary thing. Our kids grow up in this provincial. My nephew once came here and called this Mayberry, and he made the point that, what do your kids do when they leave here? And if our kids have a more diverse experience, that's probably not a bad thing for this world.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I don't really care what your race or your proclivities are, as long as they're legal. That shouldn't be involved in a decision to hire a good educator. That's my only position here. It's not about being afraid to bring another race into our system. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the exact opposite. It shouldn't even be considered. And this, to me, is the opposite of that. That's just again, my opinion. I just don't want to be this. I don't want to come off as I only want, one homogeneous looking crowd of people in front of our students. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the opposite. I just want good people. And this to me has nothing to do with it. That's my only, that's where I'm going.
I don't think this prevents us from hiring the
I don't
best
think it does
people.
either, but I just think the intent is misguided.
Yeah, do we have any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of adopting policy and regulation 4113.1, or point 3?
41113.
4111.3, personnel. Please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? The motion passes. One, two, how many do we have? 8? So 7-1-0. All right, I'm going to hit policy number 4118.22.
No, I don't have that next one in my book. What did I do with it? Huh, no, it's not here. All right, so policy 4118.22 in parentheses A. Code of Ethics. You've all had a chance to read it. Any comments? Additions, deletions?
Seeing none, could we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
A motion by Eric. We have a
I
second.
second it.
Second by Frank. Any discussion?
Oh, I did have that.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any object? All right, motion passes 7-1-0.
All right, policy 5112 in parentheses A, students, ages of attendance / admissions / placement. Are there any other changes you'd like to make, deletions or corrections, comments?
Okay, seeing none, we get a motion to approve policy 5112, students, ages of attendance, admission, placement, second reading.
I'll
Motion.
make that motion.
Motion Penny, do we have a second?
No second.
Second Tim, any discussion?
Just for the record, we have no choice, right? So this is all for show. That's the reason I'm not saying yes to these, just so everyone knows. Because it really doesn't matter.
Are we including the request for a waiver in this? I know there was some talk about not having that available.
Yeah, it currently is. And all of the superintendent's groups, CABE, CAPS, have all made it clear that we want that eliminated so that there's no ambiguity. It's just September 1st, 5 years old, and eliminate that waiver. We're waiting on any further legislative action on that, but as of right now, it is.
So that's a state decision then, not a,
It has been,
Okay.
but not well thought out.
Okay.
As evidenced publicly and throughout.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? No abstentions. Motion passes 7-1-0.
Our final one is policy P5141.5 in parentheses A, students, youth suicide prevention and attempts.
We get a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
Motion by Kristen. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Penny. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That passes unanimous. All right, that is all our policies for today. Thank you, Penny.
Yep.
Any reports? The next item on the agenda is reports. Do you have any reports for today? Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is additional public comment. This is specific to any agenda items that are on the agenda for today.
Were we
Okay.
discussing this or not?
That was last meeting.
Oh, was it? No, it
Yeah.
was in my packet.
Okay. Yeah, that was for last meeting.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, no public comment. Can I get a motion to enter executive session to discuss the superintendent's contract? And the New Hartford Board of Education self-evaluation, and invite Superintendent Sosa to join us.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session at 8:25 for the purpose of the superintendent evaluation and contract and the New Hartford Board of Education evaluation, and invite Superintendent Souza to join us.
I'll second that.
Motion by Penny, seconded by Frank. I won't repeat all that, but we're going to go into an executive session at 8:25. All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Do not take all the cookies.